A millionaire asked her to pretend to be his girlfriend for 5 minutes. What she did left him speechless. "Please, I'll give you $500, just 5 minutes." Isabella looked up from packing her unsold oranges, rain dripping from her dark hair. The man standing before her fruit stand wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. His desperate eyes didn't match his wealthy appearance. $500 for what exactly? She continued wrapping the oranges in newspaper, not trusting whatever scheme this stranger had in mind. "Pretend to be my girlfriend. There's a man over there who won't leave me alone about a business deal. If he thinks I'm with someone, he'll back off." Isabella glanced past him to see a well-dressed Asian man watching them from across the street. "And you picked me because?" "Because you're here and I'm desperate." David ran his hand through his wet hair. "Look, I know how this sounds, but I swear I'm not some creep. I'm David Sterling. You can Google me later if you want." The name meant nothing to Isabella, but $500 meant textbooks for Carlos next semester. She studied David's face, looking for signs of danger, but saw only genuine panic. 5 minutes, that's it. "Thank you." Relief flooded his features. "Just act like we're together. Maybe hold my hand or something." Isabella dried her hands on her apron and stepped around the fruit stand. "What's his name?" "Marcus Chen. He's—" "Too late. He's coming over." Isabella slipped her hand into David's, surprised by how naturally it fit. "Follow my lead." Marcus approached with a predatory smile. "David, I was hoping we could continue our conversation about the merger." "Actually, Marcus, I was just spending time with my girlfriend." David's voice sounded stiff and rehearsed. Isabella squeezed his hand and stepped closer. "David's told me so much about you, Mr. Chen, though he's been trying to keep work separate from our personal time." She smiled warmly, but her tone carried a subtle warning. "I didn't realize David was seeing anyone. We prefer to keep things private." Isabella looked up at David with convincing affection. "David works so hard, and when he finally gets a break, I don't like sharing him with business talk." Marcus's smile faltered. "Perhaps we could arrange dinner with you both sometime." "That's so sweet, but we're actually leaving for a weekend getaway tomorrow." David finally agreed to disconnect from work completely. Isabella turned to David, playing her part perfectly. "Didn't you, honey?" David stared at her, momentarily speechless. The way she called him honey, the protective tone in her voice, the effortless way she'd taken control of the situation, it all felt surprisingly real. "Yes," he managed, "to complete disconnect." "Well then, I won't keep you." Marcus backed away, clearly frustrated. "We'll talk next week, David." As Marcus disappeared into the crowd, Isabella dropped David's hand and returned to her oranges. "There, 5 minutes exactly." David pulled out his wallet, but his hands were shaking slightly. "That was incredible. You're incredible." "It's just acting." Isabella accepted the bills, though part of her had enjoyed the performance more than she wanted to admit. "No, it wasn't just acting. You protected me without even knowing me." David watched her finish packing. "What's your name?" "Isabella Martinez." "Isabella." He said it carefully, like he was testing how it sounded. "Can I help you carry these to your car?" "I don't have a car, I take the bus." "Then let me call you a ride, it's the least I can do." Isabella hefted her bag of unsold fruit. "I'm fine, Mr. Sterling. Thank you for the money." As she walked toward the bus stop, her notebook slipped from her apron pocket and fell to the wet pavement. David called after her, but she was already boarding the bus, earbuds in, unaware of what she'd left behind. David picked up the notebook, intending to return it immediately, but the bus was already pulling away. He opened it to find a name and address, but what he saw inside made him forget all about Marcus Chen and business deals. Page after page of detailed engineering drawings, mathematical calculations, and innovative designs for vertical farming systems. All written in Spanish, which he happened to speak fluently from his college years in Madrid. Isabella Martinez wasn't just a fruit vendor. She was a brilliant engineer with ideas that could revolutionize urban agriculture. "You came back." Isabella didn't look up from arranging apples as David approached her fruit stand the next morning. She'd been expecting him. Men like him always wanted something more than a simple transaction. "You dropped this." David held out her notebook, watching her face carefully. Isabella's hands stilled on the apples. She'd searched everywhere for that notebook last night, nearly crying when she couldn't find it. Those designs represented months of work, dreams she'd sketched during slow afternoons at the stand. "Did you look inside?" Her voice was steady, but David caught the underlying tension. I had to find your name to return it. He paused. Isabella, those designs are remarkable. They're just ideas. She snatched the notebook and tucked it safely into her apron. Thank you for bringing it back. Just ideas. You've solved 3 major problems with current vertical farming systems. The water circulation design alone could save thousands of gallons per month. Isabella finally looked at him directly. You speak Spanish. Studied in Madrid for 2 years. Isabella, why are you selling fruit when you could be changing how cities grow food? Because my engineering degree means nothing here. The words came out sharper than she intended. Because getting it recognized requires money I don't have and time I can't afford to take off work. David stepped closer to the stand. What if I told you I run a tech company focused on sustainable urban solutions? What if I offered you a consulting position to develop these ideas? I'd say you're either lying or you feel sorry for me. Isabella began aggressively polishing an apple. Rich men don't offer jobs to fruit vendors they met yesterday. Rich men don't usually need fake girlfriends either. But here we are. Despite herself, Isabella almost smiled. What kind of consulting position? Full development of your vertical farming system, research budget, engineering team, the works. Starting salary would be… No. Isabella set down the apple. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, it's business. These ideas could make millions. For you. For us. Equal partnership. Isabella studied his face, looking for the catch. There was always a catch. Why do you care? David was quiet for a moment. Because yesterday, for 5 minutes, someone treated me like a person instead of a bank account. And because those designs show more innovation than I've seen from engineers with 20 years of experience. Before Isabella could respond, her brother Carlos appeared, carrying a box of supplies from the storage unit they rented nearby. He was 22, tall and lean, with Isabella's dark eyes and their father's protective instincts. Isa, who's this? Carlos, this is David Sterling. David, my brother Carlos. Carlos set down the box and crossed his arms. You're the guy from yesterday, the one who paid my sister to pretend to be his girlfriend. Carlos. What? David looked between them. You told him. I tell my brother everything. Isabella's chin lifted defiantly. We don't keep secrets. Carlos stepped closer to David. So what do you want now? More pretending? I offered your sister a job. Right. What kind of job? Carlos's tone suggested he thought he knew exactly what kind. Developing sustainable urban farming technology. Your sister is brilliant. My sister is off limits. Carlos moved protectively in front of Isabella. She doesn't need some rich guy messing with her head. Carlos, stop. Isabella touched her brother's arm. I can handle this myself. Can you? Because yesterday you needed rent money, and today this guy's offering you a dream job. That's not suspicious at all. David watched the exchange, recognizing the fierce loyalty between the siblings. It reminded him of something he'd lost long ago, people who cared about him for who he was, not what he could provide. You're right to be suspicious, David said quietly. If I were in your position, I'd think the same thing, but look at her designs yourself. Ask any engineer if those ideas are worth developing. This isn't about yesterday. This is about your sister being too talented to waste her time selling fruit. Carlos glanced at Isabella, who was staring at the ground. Isa? His company works on urban sustainability projects, she admitted. I looked him up last night. And maybe he's right about the designs being good. She looked up at David. But I'm still not interested in charity. Then don't think of it as charity. Think of it as an investment in your own future. Before Isabella could respond, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. Marcus Chen stepped out, his attention immediately focused on the fruit stand. Well, the happy couple reunites. Marcus's smile was cold as he approached. How was your romantic getaway, David? Isabella felt David tense beside her. Without thinking, she moved closer to him, her hand finding his arm. We decided to stay local, she said smoothly. Seattle has so many hidden gems when you know where to look. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he studied Isabella more carefully. And what exactly do you do, Miss Martinez? I'm in agricultural consulting. How interesting, and where did you study? Isabella lifted her chin. Universidad Nacional de Colombia, agricultural engineering. I see. Marcus pulled out his phone. David, I'm sure you won't mind if I do a little research on your girlfriend's background, for security purposes, of course. The threat hung in the air like smoke. David's jaw clenched, but before he could respond, Isabella stepped forward. Research all you want, Mr. Chen. I'm proud of my education and my work. She gestured to her fruit stand. And I'm not ashamed of honest work while I build my consulting business. Marcus studied her for another long moment, then smiled. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other, Miss Martinez. After he left, Carlos whistled low. Isa, what did you get yourself into? Isabella watched the sedan disappear into traffic. I'm not sure yet. David turned to her. That offer for the consulting position? It just became more urgent. Marcus Chen doesn't make idle threats. What kind of threats? The kind that could hurt you and your brother if you're connected to me. David's expression was grim. I'm sorry, I never meant to drag you into my problems. Isabella looked at her fruit stand, then at Carlos, then back at David. The smart thing would be to walk away, to keep her small, safe life intact, but safety had never gotten her anywhere. Tell me more about this consulting position, she said finally. As a business partnership, not charity. David's face lit up with relief and something else. Hope. Everything changes now, Carlos said quietly, watching his sister's expression. Isabella nodded, still looking at David. Everything changes now. You want to put farms in office buildings? Isabella stood in David's conference room, studying the wall-mounted screens displaying urban development plans. 3 weeks had passed since she'd accepted his partnership offer, and their late-night brainstorming sessions had produced something neither of them expected. A revolutionary approach to feeding growing cities. Not just office buildings, apartment complexes, shopping centers, anywhere with vertical space and controlled climate. David pulled up her modified designs on the main screen. Your water recycling system reduces waste by 80%. The LED growth optimization cuts energy costs in half. Isabella traced the projected numbers with her finger. And the community integration component. That's the genius part. Local residents can lease growing space for their own food production, while the main system supplies restaurants and grocery stores. David's excitement was infectious. It's not just sustainable farming. It's community building. It's also going to cost millions to develop. I have millions. We have millions. He corrected himself, studying her face. This is still a partnership, Isabella. Equal ownership, equal decision-making power. Isabella had been testing that promise for weeks, waiting for him to pull rank or dismiss her ideas. Instead, he deferred to her expertise on every technical decision. It was unsettling how much she was beginning to trust him. There's something else we need to discuss. David's tone shifted. Marcus Chen bought the building that houses your fruit stand. He's planning to demolish the entire block for a luxury development. Isabella's stomach dropped. When? Construction starts in 2 months, but the Small Business Association is fighting it. They're holding a community meeting tonight. You knew about this and didn't tell me? I found out yesterday. I wanted to have a solution before what? Before you decided whether it was worth saving? Isabella's voice rose. That fruit stand isn't just my business, David. It's how I met every person in this neighborhood. It's how I proved I belonged somewhere. David held up his hands. I know, that's why I want to help. Help how? Write a check and make it disappear? Actually, yes. I can buy the building from Chen, preserve the small businesses. No. Isabella's response was immediate and sharp. I won't let you buy my problems away. Why not? It's a simple solution. Because simple solutions from rich people always come with strings attached. Isabella grabbed her jacket from the chair. I'm going to that community meeting, alone. David watched her head for the door. Isabella, wait. What? You're right. I can't just buy your problems away, but I can show up and support the community fight. Not as your business partner, just as someone who cares about what happens to that neighborhood. Isabella paused at the doorway. Why would you care? Because that's where I met you, and because watching you talk to your customers, seeing how you remember everyone's names and ask about their families, it's the most real thing I've witnessed in years. 2 hours later, Isabella sat in a crowded community center, listening to neighbors voice their frustrations about the development. Mrs. Chen, no relation to Marcus, had run her flower shop for 30 years. Ahmed had built his restaurant from nothing after immigrating from Syria. The stories went on, each one representing a life that would be displaced. When Isabella's turn came to speak, she stood slowly. "I'm Isabella Martinez. I've run the fruit stand on Pike Street for 2 years. "We know you, mija," called out Mrs. Rodriguez from the back. "You helped my grandson with his math homework." Isabella smiled. "This neighborhood gave me a chance when I was new to this country. It gave me customers who became friends, who trusted me with their stories and their families. Marcus Chen sees empty buildings he can tear down. We see home." The room erupted in applause. As Isabella sat down, she noticed David slip in through the back door. He didn't approach her, just found a seat and listened. The meeting ran late, with residents forming committees and planning protests. Isabella found herself elected to the organizing committee, along with Ahmed and Mrs. Chen. As people filed out, David approached her carefully. "That was a powerful speech. You stayed for the whole thing." "I wanted to understand what we're fighting for." Isabella studied his face. "We? If you'll have me. Not as a donor or a benefactor, just as someone who wants to help organize." "You know about community organizing?" David smiled sheepishly. "I know about spreadsheets and logistics. I figure every revolution needs good record keeping." Despite everything, Isabella laughed. "Fine, but you follow my lead and no writing checks." "Deal." They walked back toward the fruit stand together, the late evening air cool against their faces. The partnership that had started as a business arrangement was becoming something neither of them had anticipated. "David, can I ask you something? Anything. Why don't you have anyone? I mean, you're successful, you're not terrible looking. You're actually kind of funny when you're not being weird about money." David was quiet for a long moment. "When people find out what I'm worth, they change. They start agreeing with everything I say, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, asking for favors they pretend are friendly advice. I stopped being able to tell who liked me and who liked my bank account. That's lonely. Very lonely." Isabella stopped walking. "For what it's worth, I liked you better when I thought you were just some desperate guy in an expensive suit. The money thing is actually kind of annoying." David laughed, a real laugh that transformed his whole face. "Good to know." They reached the fruit stand, now covered by a tarp for the night. Isabella ran her hand along the metal frame she'd assembled herself when she first started the business. "I can't lose this place, David. It's not just about the money. It's about proving I can build something that matters." "You won't lose it. We'll figure out a way to fight Chen that doesn't compromise your principles." "Promise." "Promise." As Isabella headed for the bus stop, David's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "How did the meeting go?" He typed back, "Better than expected. I think I'm becoming an activist." "About time. Coffee tomorrow. I have news about the Chen situation." David pocketed his phone, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose beyond profit. Connection beyond transaction. And the growing certainty that Isabella Martinez was changing his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. But as he walked to his car, he missed the figure watching from across the street, taking photos of him and Isabella together. Marcus Chen's investigation into David's girlfriend was just beginning, and the real test of their partnership was about to arrive. "You need to see this." Rachel's voice was tight as she slid a folder across the coffee shop table to David. Inside were photos of him and Isabella at the community meeting, outside her fruit stand walking together after dark. The images were accompanied by a detailed dossier on Isabella's background. Chen had her investigated. David's hands clenched around his coffee cup. How deep did he dig? Deep enough to find out about her student visa status when she first arrived, her brother's scholarship details, even her parents' financial situation back in Colombia. Rachel's expression was grim. "But David, there's something else, something worse." She pulled out a second document, a timeline of events that made David's blood run cold. "Chen orchestrated your first meeting. He knew about your pattern of working late near Pike Place Market. He knew Marcus would approach you that specific evening because he'd been tracking your schedule for weeks." David stared at the timeline. "That's impossible. The business dinner you were trying to avoid, Chen arranged it. He made sure you'd be walking past Isabella's fruit stand at closing time, desperate for an excuse to get away from him." "Why would he do that?" "Because he's been planning a hostile takeover of your company for months. He needed leverage, something personal he could use against you. When his first approach failed, he decided to create a weakness he could exploit. David felt sick. Isabella. He planned for you to meet someone, anyone, that he could use later. The fact that it was Isabella specifically, that was just luck. But David, the feelings you developed, the relationship you built, that's all real. Chen didn't count on you actually falling for her. It doesn't matter what's real if Isabella thinks I manipulated her. David stood abruptly. I have to tell her. Wait. Rachel grabbed his arm. There's more. Chen's planning to approach Isabella directly. He's going to tell her about the setup and offer her a deal, inside information about your business practices in exchange for her cooperation in his takeover. She would, if she thought you'd been lying to her from the beginning. David was already heading for the door. I have to get to her first. But when he reached the fruit stand, Isabella was gone. A handwritten sign read, "Closed for family emergency." David's heart sank as he realized Chen had already made his move. Isabella sat in her small apartment, staring at the check Marcus Chen had left on her kitchen table. $50,000, along with a detailed explanation of how David Sterling had orchestrated their first meeting as part of some elaborate business strategy. Isa, you okay? Carlos emerged from his bedroom, textbooks in hand. You've been sitting there for an hour. David lied to me. Her voice was hollow. About everything. She handed Carlos the documents Chen had provided. As her brother read, his face darkened with anger. That bastard. I knew something was wrong. Rich guys don't just offer partnerships to fruit vendors. Apparently they do when they need to manipulate someone for business purposes. Isabella picked up the check. Chen says David's been using me to distract from his company's financial problems. The urban farming project is just a front to attract investors. What are you going to do? I'm going to quit. Today. Before I make an even bigger fool of myself. Carlos sat down beside her. Isa, I've seen you with him. I've seen the way you light up when you talk about those farming designs, the way you both get excited about the community stuff. That's not fake. How would you know? Because I've never seen you trust anyone like that. Not since Papa died. Isabella wiped her eyes. It doesn't matter. The whole foundation of our relationship is built on lies. What if it's not? What if this Chen guy is the one lying? Before Isabella could respond, someone knocked on the door. Through the peephole, she saw David standing in the hallway, looking haggard and desperate. Isabella, please, I need to talk to you. Go away, Dave. I know what Chen told you. I know about the documents he showed you. But there's something you need to know about how we really met. Isabella opened the door but didn't invite him in. I already know how we met. You needed a fake girlfriend to avoid a business meeting you orchestrated yourself. That's not true. Isabella, Chen set up that entire situation. He's been planning this for months. More lies. Isabella started to close the door, but David stepped forward. The timeline is all wrong. Check the dates. Chen's been stalking my routine, planning the perfect moment to approach me when I'd be vulnerable. He needed me to form an attachment to someone he could later use against me. So I was just bait? You were supposed to be. But Chen didn't count on you being brilliant or kind, or completely changing my perspective on everything that matters. David's voice broke slightly. He didn't count on me falling in love with you. Isabella felt her resolve waver. You're just saying that. I'm saying it because it's true. And because I'm about to lose everything that matters to me. Carlos appeared behind Isabella. What do you mean, lose everything? Chen's moving forward with his takeover. He's got enough votes from my board to push me out, and now he's got inside information about our projects that he's using to undermine investor confidence. Inside information from where? Isabella's voice was sharp. David met her eyes. From someone who's been feeding him details about our urban farming project. Someone who had access to all our research and development plans. You think No. I think Chen has been using someone else to spy on both of us. Someone who's been playing a much longer game than either of us realized. Isabella felt the pieces clicking together. The engineering specifications Chen showed me. They included details I never shared with anyone except... Except who? The consulting firm that evaluated my credentials. The one that fast-tracked my application review. Isabella's face went pale. Oh God, David. I think I've been compromised from the beginning. Carlos was already moving toward his laptop. Isa, what was the name of that firm? Chen and Associates Legal Services. As soon as the words left her mouth, Isabella realized her mistake. Same last name, I thought it was just a coincidence. David's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Board meeting moved up to tonight. They're calling for your resignation. Chen's bringing documentation that Isabella's been selling company secrets. Isabella, I need you to come with me to the board meeting. We need to expose Chen's manipulation before he destroys both of us. Isabella looked at the check on her table, then at David's desperate face. Why should I trust you? Because despite everything that's happened, you're the only person who's ever seen me for who I really am. And because I'd rather lose my company than lose you. Carlos closed his laptop. Isa, the legal firm, is definitely connected to Marcus Chen. They've been filing paperwork for his development projects for months. Isabella made her decision. What do you need me to do? I need you to be my partner. For real this time. No pretending, no manipulation. Just us against someone who's been playing us both from the beginning. And if we lose, then we lose together. Isabella tore up Chen's check and let the pieces fall to the floor. Let's go save your company. As they headed for the door, none of them noticed the listening device Chen had planted in Isabella's apartment during his visit. Their entire conversation had been recorded, and Marcus Chen now knew exactly how to destroy them both. The real battle was just beginning. The boardroom felt like a courtroom as Isabella and David entered Sterling Tech's executive floor. Around the polished table sat 12 board members, their faces ranging from sympathetic to openly hostile. Marcus Chen occupied the seat directly opposite the entrance, a stack of documents arranged before him like weapons. David, thank you for joining us. Board Chairman Robert Hayes looked uncomfortable. Mr. Chen has presented some serious allegations about corporate espionage and misuse of company resources. I'm sure he has. David took his seat, Isabella beside him. Before we begin, I'd like the board to meet my business partner, Isabella Martinez. She's the engineer behind our urban farming initiative. The same Isabella Martinez who's been selling your company secrets to competitors? Chen's voice was smooth as silk. I've never sold anything to anyone. Isabella's voice was steady despite the hammering of her heart. Chen opened his folder. Phone records show 17 calls between Ms. Martinez and my legal firm over the past month. Bank records show payments totaling $15,000 to her personal account. For credential evaluation services, Isabella shot back. Services your firm offered at below market rates, which I thought was just good customer service. Convenient explanation. Chen smiled coldly. Perhaps you can also explain these. He distributed copies of technical documents, Isabella's original designs with Sterling Tech's letterhead, and David's signature authorizing their development. But the specifications had been altered, key innovations removed or modified to appear less effective. David examined the papers, his face darkening. These aren't the designs we developed. Someone sabotaged the technical specifications. Are you suggesting Ms. Martinez provided incomplete or false information? I'm suggesting someone with access to our servers modified these files after Isabella submitted them. David looked directly at Chen. The question is, who had both the access and the motive? Board member Sarah Kim leaned forward. David, these irregularities are serious. Combined with the personal relationship you've developed with Ms. Martinez, it raises questions about your judgment. My judgment? David stood, his composure finally cracking. My judgment led me to partner with one of the most innovative engineers I've ever met. My judgment helped me recognize that Isabella's designs could revolutionize urban agriculture and generate millions in revenue for this company. Revenue that seems increasingly theoretical, another board member interjected. Mr. Chen has presented evidence that the project is significantly over budget and behind schedule. Isabella felt the walls closing in. Every word she'd spoken to David, every technical detail she'd shared was being twisted against them both. But as she watched Chen's satisfied expression, something clicked into place. May I see those financial projections again? She asked. Chen hesitated. I'm not sure that's... She's my business partner, David said firmly. She has every right to review the project finances. Isabella studied the numbers, her engineering mind working through the calculations. After a moment, she looked up with a slight smile. These projections are based on outdated water recycling systems. The efficiency ratings are from technology That's 3 generations behind what we actually developed. She turned to the board. Either Mr. Chen doesn't understand the technical specifications, or he's deliberately using false data to make our project appear unviable. That's a serious accusation, Hayes said. It's an accurate accusation. Isabella pulled out her phone. I can prove it. Ms. Martinez, please don't. Chen started to object, but Isabella was already connecting her phone to the boardroom's display system. These are the real specifications for our water recycling system submitted to the patent office last week. The screen filled with detailed technical drawings. As you can see, our system reduces water waste by 83%, not the 40% shown in Mr. Chen's projections. She clicked to the next slide. Here's our energy efficiency data, verified by independent testing. We're operating at 67% less energy consumption than traditional vertical farming systems. The board members leaned forward, studying the data with growing interest. And here, Isabella's voice grew stronger, is the real financial projection based on accurate technical specifications. Our system will be profitable within 18 months and will generate an estimated $40 million in revenue by year 3. Chen's face had gone pale. Those numbers are theoretical. They're verified by Seattle University's Agricultural Engineering Department. Isabella clicked to a final slide showing official test results. Because unlike some people in this room, I believe in backing up my claims with actual data. The boardroom fell silent. David stared at Isabella with something approaching awe. She'd just demolished Chen's entire case with facts and evidence, turning what should have been their destruction into a vindication of everything they'd built together. Mr. Chen, Hayes said slowly, it appears your information was significantly inaccurate. Do you have an explanation? Chen gathered his papers, his composure finally cracking. This is clearly a setup. Ms. Martinez has obviously falsified. The data is independently verified, Sarah Kim interrupted. Mr. Chen, your presentation to this board was either negligently prepared or deliberately misleading. Furthermore, David added, I think the board should know that Mr. Chen has been conducting unauthorized surveillance of myself and Ms. Martinez. His investigation included planted listening devices and harassment of local business owners. Chen stood abruptly. You can't prove any of that. Actually, we can. Isabella's smile was sharp. I see when you bugged my apartment, you forgot that my brother Carlos is a computer science major. He found your device yesterday and traced it back to the security company you hired. We also have documentation of your attempts to manipulate property sales in the Pike Place market area to force small businesses to close, David continued. All part of your plan to destabilize my company and force a takeover. The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Hayes cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, I think it would be best if you left this meeting. After Chen stormed out, the remaining board members spent another hour reviewing Isabella's technical presentations and David's business projections. When they finally called for a vote of confidence in David's leadership, it was unanimous. As the meeting adjourned, Isabella found herself alone with David in the empty boardroom. So you saved my company, he said quietly. We saved our company. Equal partners, remember? David moved closer. Isabella, I need you to know that everything I feel for you is real. Chen may have manipulated our first meeting, but everything that came after... I know. Isabella touched his face gently. I figured it out during the meeting. Chen's too arrogant. If you were really using me, you would never have let me have equal access to company information. You would never have deferred to my technical expertise or let me take the lead on community organizing. So, where does that leave us? Isabella looked around the boardroom, then back at David. It leaves us with a successful business partnership and the complete destruction of the man who tried to tear us apart. And personally? Personally, I think I fell in love with you somewhere between the fake girlfriend act and the real partnership proposal, but I was too scared to admit it until I almost lost you. David's relief was visible. So what now? Now we go save my fruit stand from demolition, expand our urban farming project and see if a millionaire and an engineer can actually make this partnership work in all the ways that matter. David leaned down and kissed her, soft and tentative at first, then with growing confidence as Isabella kissed him back. When they broke apart, Isabella smiled. That felt real enough. Very real, and no pretending required. As they left the boardroom together, neither of them noticed the small crowd that had gathered outside. Sterling Tech employees who'd heard about the confrontation and wanted to show their support. The applause that erupted as they emerged was genuine, celebrating not just the defeat of a corporate threat, but the victory of authenticity over manipulation. Their love story had survived its first real test, and both David and Isabella knew that everything from this moment forward would be built on the solid foundation of truth, trust, and genuine partnership. The zoning committee approved our expansion proposal. Isabella burst through the doors of their shared office space, waving a stack of official documents. 6 months had passed since the boardroom confrontation with Chen, and their urban farming project had grown beyond their wildest expectations. David looked up from his computer, where he'd been reviewing applications for their community partnership program. All 15 locations. All 15. We can break ground on the Pike Place facility next month. Isabella dropped into the chair across from his desk, her excitement infectious. Mrs. Chen, the flower shop Mrs. Chen, not the evil corporate raider Mrs. Chen, wants to be our first community partner. That's incredible. David saved his work and gave Isabella his full attention. How's Carlos handling the expansion? He's terrified and thrilled. I think he's still processing that his fruit vendor sister is now running a multi-million-dollar agriculture company. Their success had been swift and overwhelming. The Seattle facility was already producing enough fresh vegetables to supply 12 local restaurants and 2 grocery stores. More importantly, the community integration component had exceeded all projections. Over 200 families now grew their own food in their facility, creating a waiting list that stretched for months. Isabella pulled up their latest financial reports on her tablet. We're 6 months ahead of our profitability timeline. The investors from Portland want to fund 3 more facilities, and that group from Vancouver is asking about licensing our technology. Slow down, David laughed. Remember when our biggest concern was whether we could afford the rent on this office? It was true. They'd started working out of a cramped space above Ahmed's restaurant, with Isabella's fruit stand serving as their unofficial headquarters. Now they occupied an entire floor of a renovated warehouse, with 30 employees and expansion plans across the Pacific Northwest. Speaking of rent, Isabella said, suddenly serious, there's something I need to tell you. David's smile faded. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, it's just... Isabella fidgeted with her tablet. I bought the building that houses my old fruit stand. You what? I know we agreed to make big financial decisions together, but the opportunity came up suddenly. The owner needed to sell quickly, and I couldn't let some other developer turn it into luxury condos. David stared at her. Isabella, that building is worth over $2 million. I know. I used my share of the company profits as a down payment. The community association is helping with the rest through a cooperative ownership structure. Isabella's words came out in a rush. The fruit stand will stay, but we're also putting in a small-scale version of our farming system, a demonstration site where people can see the technology in action before visiting the main facility. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing. What's so funny? 6 months ago you wouldn't let me buy you a ride home from the bus stop. Now you're casually mentioning that you purchased a $2 million building. Isabella grinned. I guess you're rubbing off on me. Or you're discovering that having principles doesn't mean you can't use money to make positive change. Maybe both. Isabella's expression softened. David, there's something else. Before she could continue, Rachel knocked on their office door. Sorry to interrupt, but there are about 50 people downstairs asking for you both. David and Isabella exchanged glances. 50 people. The entire Small Business Association, plus most of your community partners, plus some people I don't recognize with cameras. They followed Rachel downstairs to find the building's lobby packed with familiar faces. Mrs. Chen held a bouquet of flowers, Ahmed carried a platter of his famous baklava, and Carlos stood near the back with a camera crew from the local news station. Surprise! The crowd shouted as Isabella and David appeared. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Mija, we heard about your building purchase. We wanted to thank you for saving our neighborhood. It's not just my building, Isabella protested. It belongs to all of us now. That's exactly why we're here, Ahmed added, to celebrate someone who understands that success means lifting up your community, not leaving it behind. The news crew moved forward, and Isabella recognized the reporter from Channel 7's community interest segments. "Ms. Martinez, can you tell us about your journey from street vendor to successful entrepreneur?" Isabella glanced at David, who nodded encouragingly. "It's not my journey alone. It's about what happens when people believe in each other's potential and work together to build something meaningful." "And Mr. Sterling, how has this partnership changed your approach to business?" David looked at Isabella, then at the crowd of people whose lives had been touched by their work. "It's taught me that the most valuable investments aren't measured in dollars. They're measured in relationships, in community impact, and in whether you can look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of what you've built." The interview continued for another 20 minutes, with community members sharing stories about how the urban farming project had affected their lives. Mrs. Chen talked about selling fresh herbs grown in their facility. Ahmed described how having locally grown vegetables had elevated his restaurant's menu. Young parents explained how their children were learning about nutrition and sustainability through the community garden programs. As the crowd began to disperse, Isabella found herself alone with David on the building's rooftop garden, a smaller version of their farming systems that they'd installed as a testing ground for new growing techniques. "You said there was something else you wanted to tell me," David prompted. Isabella took a deep breath. "The building purchase isn't the only big decision I made without consulting you, Isabella. I've been thinking about what comes next for us. The business is successful, the community partnerships are working, and we've proven that our model can scale. But there's something missing." David felt his heart rate increase. "What's missing?" Isabella turned to face him fully. "A real partnership, in every sense of the word." She pulled a small box from her jacket pocket. "David Sterling, you changed my life the day you asked me to pretend to be your girlfriend. But somewhere along the way, pretending became the most real thing I'd ever experienced." David stared at the box in her hands. "Isabella, I'm proposing to you. I know it's not traditional, but nothing about our relationship has been traditional. We're equal partners in business, and I want us to be equal partners in everything else too." She opened the box to reveal a simple silver band made from recycled materials, the same sustainable metals they used in their farming equipment. "This ring represents everything we've built together. It's practical, it's environmentally responsible, and it's designed to last forever." Isabella's voice shook slightly. "Just like I want our partnership to last." David took the ring from the box, examining the elegant simplicity of its design. "You had this made from our equipment scraps. Carlos helped with the design. Rachel helped with the sizing. Even Ahmed contributed by letting me use his jewelry-making tools. So everyone knew about this except me. Everyone knew I was planning to propose, but David, no one else knows my answer to the question I'm hoping you'll ask me." David slipped the ring onto his finger, then dropped to one knee on the rooftop garden. "Isabella Martinez, you've taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits into your existing life. It's about building a completely new life together, one that's better than anything either of you could have created alone." He pulled out his own small box, which made Isabella laugh through her tears. "Great minds think alike," he said, opening it to reveal a matching ring. "Isabella, will you marry me? Will you be my partner in business, in community building, in changing the world one vertical farm at a time?" "Yes," Isabella whispered, then louder. "Yes, absolutely yes." As David slipped the ring onto her finger, the sun began to set over Seattle, casting golden light across their rooftop garden and the city beyond. In the distance, Isabella could see her old fruit stand, now surrounded by construction equipment that would soon transform it into a symbol of sustainable community development. "So what's our next project?" David asked as they stood together, looking out over the city they were helping to feed. "I was thinking we could plan a wedding, something small and community-focused, maybe in the garden space at the new facility." "I love that idea." "When?" Isabella smiled. "How about 6 months? That gives us time to finish the Pike Place construction and launch the community partnership program. 6 months until I get to call you my wife instead of my business partner. You'll get to call me both." David kissed her as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, and Isabella realized that their love story had come full circle. They'd started with 5 minutes of pretending and built a lifetime of authentic partnership that would continue growing, like the plants in their vertical farms, reaching always toward the light. 5 years later, Isabella adjusted her safety goggles and stepped back to survey the latest addition to their urban farming complex. The facility now sprawled across 12 acres in the heart of Seattle, its glass towers reaching 30 stories into the sky, each floor bursting with vegetables, herbs, and fruit trees that fed over 50,000 people daily. "Mama, look!" 3-year-old Sophia Sterling Martinez pointed excitedly at the automated harvesting system moving through rows of lettuce. "The robots are picking lunch." "That's right, mi amor." Isabella scooped up her daughter, marveling as always at the child's fascination with the technology that had become as natural to her as breathing. "And what did Papa teach you about the robots?" "They help the plants grow big and strong, but people are still the most important part." David emerged from the facility's administrative offices, his tablet in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. At 37, he'd traded his expensive suits for practical work clothes, though Isabella noticed he still couldn't quite shake the habit of checking quarterly reports first thing in the morning. "The Portland expansion is ahead of schedule," he announced, kissing Isabella and lifting Sophia into his arms. "And the Vancouver team wants to discuss licensing our newest water reclamation system." "Slow down, businessman." Isabella laughed, the same laugh that had first captivated David in the rain 5 years ago. "It's Saturday. Family day, remember?" "Right, family day." David set down his tablet with exaggerated ceremony. "How could I forget? Today we're visiting the community garden with Carlos and Maria." Isabella smiled at the mention of her brother, now doctor. Carlos Martinez, who ran their educational outreach programs alongside his wife Maria, a nutritionist they'd met during a conference in Vancouver. The extended family had grown in ways none of them had anticipated. They walked through the facility's main corridor, past photographs documenting their journey from a single fruit stand to a network of urban farms across 3 countries. Isabella paused at her favorite image, the community celebration from their wedding day, held right here in what was then an empty warehouse space. "Tell me the story again, Mama," Sophia demanded, following her mother's gaze to the wedding photo. "Which story, pequeña?" "The story about how you and Papa fell in love." David grinned. "Well, it all started when I desperately needed a fake girlfriend." No, Sophia giggled. "Tell it the real way." Isabella and David exchanged the look of parents who'd told this story countless times, but never tired of their child's reaction. "Once upon a time," Isabella began, "there was a very lonely businessman who thought money could solve every problem, and a very stubborn engineer who thought she had to solve every problem by herself," David continued. "But what they discovered," Isabella said, lifting Sophia higher, "is that the best solutions come from working together, caring for your community, and never being afraid to plant seeds that might take years to grow." They reached the facility's main floor, where the Saturday morning community market was in full swing. Local families moved between stalls selling produce grown in the towers above, while children participated in gardening workshops led by Carlos and his team. Mrs. Chen, now 85 and still running her flower shop, waved from her booth, where she sold arrangements made from flowers grown in their specialized botanical sections. Ahmed had opened 3 more restaurants, all supplied by their farms, and had become something of a celebrity chef promoting sustainable urban agriculture. "Tia Isabella," a teenage boy ran up to them, speaking rapid Spanish mixed with English. "The tomatoes in section 12 are ready for harvest, and I counted 47 different varieties." "Excelente, Miguel." Isabella high-fived Carlos's oldest student. "Make sure to document everything for the university research project." As they walked through the market, Isabella reflected on how completely their lives had transformed. She now held dual PhDs in agricultural engineering and sustainable development, earned through a program David had helped fund at the University of Washington. Her research papers were cited internationally, and she'd spoken at conferences in 15 countries about the intersection of technology, community development, and food security. David had stepped back from day-to-day operations of Sterling Tech, focusing instead on their agricultural ventures and a foundation that provided microgrants to immigrant entrepreneurs. The foundation had already helped launch over 200 small businesses, with Isabella serving as its technical advisor and David handling the business development side. "Look who's here!" Rachel appeared, pushing a stroller containing her 6-month-old twins. As their chief operating officer, She'd been instrumental in scaling their operations while maintaining the community focus that made their model unique. "How are my godchildren?" Isabella cooed at the sleeping babies. "Exhausted, just like their parents," Rachel laughed. "But we wanted to bring them to see their future workplace." "Future workplace?" David raised an eyebrow. "Please, you think these kids are getting out of the family business? By the time they're Sophia's age, you'll probably have urban farms on every continent." It wasn't far from the truth. Their technology was being implemented in cities across North America, South America, and Europe. A pilot program in Lagos, Nigeria, was showing promising results, and they'd received inquiries from urban planners in Singapore, Tokyo, and São Paulo. But the real success, Isabella knew, wasn't measured in global expansion or financial returns. It was measured in moments like this, watching Sophia play with children from dozens of different countries and backgrounds, all of them growing up in a community where sustainable living and mutual support were simply the way things worked. "Mama, Papa, come see." Sophia had discovered the memorial garden they'd created to honor community members they'd lost over the years. The centerpiece was a plaque dedicated to Isabella's father, who had passed away 2 years earlier, but had lived long enough to see his daughter's success and meet his granddaughter. "Papa Miguel would be so proud," David said quietly, using the name Sophia had given her grandfather during their one precious year together. "He is proud," Isabella corrected, touching the plaque where fresh flowers appeared weekly, left by community members who remembered the quiet man who had raised such an extraordinary daughter. As the morning market wound down, the family made their way to the facility's top floor, a restaurant and observation deck where visitors could see the entire operation while enjoying meals prepared from ingredients grown in the towers below. 5 years, David mused, looking out over the city where their love story had begun. 5 years since what? "Since I asked a complete stranger to pretend to be my girlfriend for 5 minutes. Isabella leaned against him, Sophia drowsing in her arms. "Best 5 minutes of my life. Mine too. Though I have to admit, the rest of it has been pretty good too." In the distance, Isabella could see the Pike Place market area, where her original fruit stand had been transformed into a community center that offered ESL classes, small business development workshops, and nutrition education programs. The building she'd purchased with her first company profits now housed 12 family-owned businesses and served as the headquarters for their community partnership initiatives. "Do you ever miss it?" David asked. "The simplicity of just running a fruit stand?" Isabella considered the question, watching Sophia sleep peacefully in her arms. "I miss some things about it. The direct connection with customers, the satisfaction of small daily goals, the feeling that I was building something with my own hands. But I wouldn't trade what we built together for anything. Not the business, not the community, and definitely not this family." Sophia stirred in her arms, opening dark eyes that sparkled with curiosity about everything around her. "Tell me the story again," she murmured sleepily. "Which story, pequeña?" "The story about the seeds." Isabella smiled. It was Sophia's favorite metaphor, one they'd developed to explain how small actions could grow into something beautiful and lasting. "Well," Isabella began, "once there was a woman who planted seeds every day, hoping they would grow into something that could feed her community, and a man who had forgotten that the best things in life need time and care to grow properly," David added. "But when they planted seeds together," Isabella continued, "they discovered that love, like gardens, grows best when you tend it carefully, share the work, and never stop believing in the harvest to come." Sophia nodded seriously. "And now we have the biggest garden in the whole world." "Not the biggest," David corrected gently, "but maybe the most loved." As the sun set over Seattle, casting golden light through the glass walls of their urban farm, Isabella realized that their story had become exactly what she'd always dreamed of. Not just a love story, but a legacy that would continue growing long after they were gone, nourishing communities and bringing people together across all the differences that might otherwise divide them. The seeds they'd planted together, in soil, in business, in community, and in love, had grown into something more beautiful and enduring than either of them had ever imagined possible. And the best part was knowing that the harvest was just beginning.